Planet Vero Studio is powered by the Nolan Group of eXp Realty. MyNextHomeFinder.com. She is a beauty influencer from New York City who commands attention.
He is a lawyer born and raised in Florida who lays down the law.
And together they are
The Lady and the Law.
Here are your hosts of The Lady and the Law, Cindy Grossman and Mitchell Goldman.
Cindy, what are we doing here?
The lady and the law.
Or as you would say, the lady and the lawyer with a New York accent.
Sorry.
So it's the lawyer. Yes, it's our inaugural show of The Lady and the Law. And my name is Mitchell Goldman. I've been a practicing attorney since 1984, born and raised here in the Sunshine State. My practice is primarily real estate, a little bit of corporate work. Over the years, I've done more general civil practice, probate, estate planning, some litigation. Fortunately, not too much of that, but we thought it would be fun to talk about law topics. And I'm the lawyer, and Cindy, you're going to talk about issues that relate to the law, but not necessarily from the lawyer perspective, correct?
I could be the lady asking questions about the law.
Okay, and hopefully Jesse will also ask questions, so all the listeners will benefit.
Of course.
Absolutely.
But one very important thing that you forgot is that Mitchell Goldman is part of a law firm, and maybe you should speak about that.
Well, thank you. And that's a very good segue because with our lawyers, we all specialize in certain practice areas. And our inaugural guest is my friend, my partner, Jay Thakkar.
Nice.
And I should tell you that Jay and I don't know if I ever told you this, we both went to the same high school. We went to the same junior high school and the same elementary school.
Really?
Now, different times. I'm a few years older, right, Jay? A few years older, but we all went to the same school.
Just a couple.
A couple. Jay, let me tell you about Jay. Jay is a double gator. Oh. He graduated law school in 2010. And before that, undergrad, both from University of Florida. Jay and I have practiced together since, it's about 11 years now. Oh. Time flies. Mm-hmm. And as I said, Jay's practice is primarily criminal law. Okay. Jay is certainly a credit to the legal profession. He is extremely active with the Young Lawyers Group, the division that the Florida Bar has. He's a state board member. He's former president of Brevard County for the Young Lawyers Division. And last bit of trivia, he is going to be the youngest president of the Brevard County Bar Association.
Excellent.
So good job, Jay.
Woohoo.
Keep up the good work. You're a credit to the profession and make our profession better. So, Jay, today you kind enough to give us a few minutes to talk about DUI cases. What does DUI stand for? And tell us a little bit about that, please.
Sure. So DUI stands for driving under the influence. There are certain states that call it DWI. Florida calls it DUI. Driving under the influence does not always mean alcohol related. It could mean controlled substances too. So it could be anything from medication or cannabis or any other drugs or alcohol. So it could be a variety of things, anything that basically affects your ability to operate a vehicle and it causes impairment.
So even if you're on, let's say, a prescription medicine and you're driving, that can, and if that impairs your ability to drive safely, then you can fall under the prohibitions of the statute. Is that correct?
Correct. I have a lot of cases that come in related to medication, especially related to Xanax or oxycodone or these kind of pain medicines, essentially, that people get injured and then the doctors give these pills to them, and unfortunately they get addicted or they use them at the wrong time, and then they get behind the wheel and they are not able to operate it effectively. So if they get pulled over, then yes, they can be charged with this kind of crime.
Okay, thank you. That's very. I don't know if everybody knows that.
No, that's a good question to know.
Jay, I guess the more typical kind of circumstances, maybe someone's out at a restaurant, at a bar, a social gathering, and they have a drink, wine, beer, liquor. Can you walk us through the process? What happens if somebody was drinking, had a drink, and they get pulled over? Talk to us about that.
Sure. So, first of all, I always tell people it's a lot cheaper to call an Uber, call a friend, have Didi. But if you happen to put yourself in this position where you've had a drink or so and you want to get behind the wheel, it all just depends on the individual. Like, I think it's a very lawyerly answer when I say it depends, but it really does. So if we have a gentleman that's, 300 something pounds and he has a couple beers, it may not affect him as much as a woman that's maybe 90 pounds or 100 pounds, so it all depends on your body weight and your style, how you handle and absorb alcohol. So if you happen to drive and you've had a drink or two, you got to know your body. So I always tell my clients, everyone says I've had 2 drinks, but if it is literally 2 drinks and it's been a couple of hours, I think you should be okay to submit to the breathalyzer and or the field sobriety exercises. But again, it depends on how much you've had, and you have to be honest with yourself. If you've had more than you can handle, then it is always my recommendation to, deny the request that the officers ask you to submit and just respectfully tell them that, officer, with all due respect, I've been advised by counsel to not submit to any exercises and or requests that you may have to test, the blood alcohol level in your body.
Jay, describe the type of tests that you mentioned, field sobriety tests and breathalyzer. Sure. Talk to us about what those are.
So those are the 2 most common types of tests that people, and I hate to use tests because they're not really tests. It's not scientific. It's very subjective. It's the officer's opinion at the end of the day that you are driving under the influence. So these field sobriety exercises I talked about, they're created to test your ability to walk, talk, and be able to normally function. But unfortunately, these exercises are not always indicative of impairment, because if you ask an individual to walk a straight line with their heel to toe touching and walking this line, not a lot of people have balance, even if they're completely dead sober. That's extremely difficult to do. So, if a heavier person tries to do these exercises, they may not be able to complete them. But unfortunately, that's what they use. So there's 3 types of exercises, and then sometimes they use different ones. But the most common one is heel to toe, where you walk 9 steps forward, 9 steps back. The second type of exercise is lifting one leg, and then you hold it as long as the officer tells you to, essentially. And then if you put it down, you pick it right back up. And then the last exercise they look at is your eyes, basically, and it's called an nystagmus test, and where they take a pen or a light and they wave it around your eyes to see if there's any kind of nystagmus to tell the impairment. But officers who are not trained for that can't really, dictate if this individual is impaired or not. And they have to be a drug recognition expert to be able to come to court and talk about these kind of the science behind it.
Are these tests videotaped? So after the tests, and I call them tests, as you suggested.
Exercise, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are these exercises?
Right. They are. Most officers have body cam videos nowadays, or they have cameras in their car that record it. Unfortunately, not every vehicle or an officer is equipped with these cameras. So if if you're one of the unlucky ones, then a jury is not going to be able to see objective evidence. They're going to basically hear what an officer says on how you looked versus how you may have actually looked. I've done trials where the officer says this individual was falling and stumbling, but then if you watch the video and the individual is perfectly fine. So it just depends, but sometimes you don't want a video, because if you look really bad on the video, then you may not want the jury to see that. So, it's a double-edged sword in that sense.
Jay, tell us a little bit about the breathalyzer machine and what that does and what it doesn't do.
Sure. So breathalyzer machines have been tested, by basically Florida Department of Law Enforcement. They come and make sure that the science behind it is working and the machine is operating. A few years ago, there were a lot of attorneys around the state that were challenging the validity of these machines. Unfortunately, a lot of the tests, it's still around, so a lot of those motions that the attorneys were filing are no longer working, at least in Brevard County, I can tell you, because that's predominantly where I practice. But what it does is basically you blow in this machine, they take 2 samples from you. And the goal is obviously the 2 samples should be pretty similar for it to work. But I've seen it where there's a huge disparity between 2. And that kind of tells me that the machine wasn't operating that well. But they test your blood alcohol level. In the state of Florida, if you get into a car accident or if you hurt somebody and there's serious bodily injury, then the officers can get a warrant to get blood out of you, even without your consent, because the individual is hurt, or unfortunately if they pass away or something like that, that's where blood comes into play. But most of the time it's either alcohol, it's either breath, urine, or the least one, but the most invasive is the blood one. That's how the 3 ways that officers can get blood alcohol level from you.
Jay, what I'd like to do, we have to take a break, but I'd like to ask you the next question. What happens if you refuse to take the blood alcohol test or the field sobriety test? What happens? And what happens if you get arrested and placed in the squad car and taken to jail? So let's talk about that when we come back in a few minutes, please.
The law offices of Goldman, Monahan, Tucker, and Bettine is here to help you with your personal legal challenges, business needs, and real estate matters. Since 1984, we have assisted countless numbers of Florida individuals and businesses with their legal issues, from trusts and estates, wills, real estate, and civil or criminal litigation. We pride ourselves on maintaining lifelong client relationships and would appreciate the opportunity to assist you and your family as well. Please call 321-639-1320 for further information on the law offices of Goldman, Monahan, Tucker, and Bettine. I'm a non-attorney spokesman.
Shop the Habitat Restore in Vero Beach, the store that builds houses. The Habitat Restore is where you'll find new and gently used items such as furniture, home decor, building materials, appliances, lighting, and much more. Did you know that 1 in 3 Habitat homes are built by the Indian River Habitat Restore? And tax-deductible donations can be dropped off at the Habitat Restore just north of 45th Street on US 1 in Vero, or they'll pick them up for free. Support the store that builds homes. Visit online at irchabitat.org.
At Compass Pest Control, we focus on killing pests where they live and breed by terminating them outside your home or office before they can get in. Hi, I'm Chris Hudman, co-owner of Compass Pest Control. We prevent roaches, ants, and other pests from getting inside with a proactive approach. We don't stop there. We also offer lawn and plant health programs. And we'll never sell you something you don't need. At Compass Pest Control, our prices are competitive, your satisfaction is guaranteed. Get a free estimate. Visit compasspests.com.
It's time to call Easy Brew Coffee and Bottled Water Service and learn just how much you can save and how convenient it is to have your coffee and bottled water delivered right to your home or office. In addition to water coolers, Easy Brew offers individual bottles of water in 8 or 16-ounce bottles. No more lugging it home or dragging it into the office. Serving the Treasure Coast for over 2 decades, 2 letters, 1 simple name. Easy for Easy Brew. Visit e-zbrew.com or call 800-792-3285. Easy Brew.
The Boom is back. Boom on the Lagoon. A day of music, fun, and fireworks. Presented by Mulligan's Beach House and Dale Sorensen Real Estate. The fun starts at 5 o'clock on the 4th of July at Riverside Park in Vero Beach with music by Johnny and the Blaze, food trucks, and contests galore. Brought to you by the City of Vero Beach, Indian River County, A Better Solution Insurance, C.W. Willis Family Farms, and Evergreen Media. Boom on the Lagoon. The 4th of July fireworks celebration at Riverside Park in Vero Beach.
Need an enlightening pick-me-up? Visit Kristen and Cindy at Skinergy to energize your skin and keep it looking fabulous forever. Kristen can help with hair removal, sugaring to keep your whole body smooth and conditioned. Kristen will help you refresh and defend your skin while giving you a customized facial. Cindy helps skinergize and get you camera ready for your everyday look or special occasion. And Skinergy is adding the services of Dr. G for all your rejuvenating aesthetic procedures. Visit Kristen, Cindy, and Dr. G at Skinergy. Find them on Facebook under the Skinergy Squad.
And we're back. Welcome back, Cindy. Welcome back, Jesse. Welcome back, Jay. So when we left, we were having a few questions about, let's start in with the process. And the next step would be somebody refuses to take the breathalyzer. What happens then, Jay?
So if you refuse to take the breathalyzer, there's 99% chance you're going to get arrested because the officer has what he basically has observed, which is your driving pattern. Like maybe you were speeding, maybe you swerved a little bit, maybe you ran a stop sign. I'm not sure. So whatever traffic infraction is, that's considered a clue for your initial detention. But then if he smells alcohol in your breath or in your sees, bloodshot eyes, or you're slurring your words, or you have any other kind of demeanor that indicates impairment, then the officer is going to basically make his judgment on that and will probably arrest you. But I rather, for a client at least, I know it's easy for me to say, but for the case purposes, I'd rather you get arrested with that because now there's less evidence, again, later on to convict you with. Because just because you're arrested, again, as they say, it's innocent until proven guilty. Just because you're arrested doesn't mean that you're guilty or that you're going to be found guilty of this. They actually have to prove the case still. So the less evidence you give them, in the long run, you're making your case better for you and my job easier to get you a good resolution for your case.
Now, in the short run, when you refuse to take the breathalyzer, there's some language on your license that can be suspended. Talk to us about that, please.
Sure. So I'm only going to talk about the first time DUI because it gets a lot more complicated when it's your second, third, fourth, etc. So if it's your run-of-the-mill first, as an individual that had a good night somewhere and ended up driving home and gets pulled over.
It ends up being a bad night.
Well, they had it before they got pulled over.
I see.
It became bad really quickly, but let's just say they get pulled over. It's the first time, no criminal history. And they've had a few drinks, and it's not just your one glass of wine or one beer kind of thing. I tell my clients, don't submit to any exercises, don't submit to the breath test, because at that point, all they really have is some type of driving pattern. Hopefully it's just like a speeding ticket, speeding situation, or you ran a stop sign or you didn't stop exactly to the line, and it's not a crazy driving pattern, because then that's the only evidence that they have to convict you with. And, in the criminal world, it's hard to prove that. Now, in regards to administrative, I always tell my clients, when you get a DUI, you're facing two animals. You got your DMV, which is your Department of Highway Motor Safety Vehicle, and then you got your state attorney's office is coming after you for criminally. So you got administrative issues and criminal. Administratively, you could be suspended for 90 days for and without a license if you refuse to provide a breath sample. However, if it's your first time, you're eligible to get a hardship license. That means you can drive for work, school, go to church, or get groceries or food, basically any legitimate reason that you want to drive, just not to go hang out with a buddy kind of thing. So you'll still be able to drive. And now you have a very strong case in the criminal setting because now they have very little evidence to convict you with. So you kind of, are, you're going to make the best out of the bad situation by not submitting to these exercises / breath tests.
Jay, what happened? Let's go back. Let's step it back a little. What happens when you get arrested? What happens then?
Sure. So the procedure is once you get arrested, you get basically taken to the local police station. So for example, I'll use Brevard County as an example. We have these little beach towns like Satellite Beach, Indian Atlantic, Indian Harbor Beach. They all have their little police stations. So if you get pulled over in one of these small towns, you get taken to their small police station. They get put in a holding cell. They'll do all the paperwork. After that, they turn you over to the sheriff's office, who will take you to the county jail. And there you'll have a bond. Now, if you post a bond, then you get out within, a couple of hours of processing. And if you have a bond. Now, if you don't have a bond, then obviously you have to wait till next morning until you see the judge who gives you a bond. If it's your first time offense, 98% chance you'll have a bond unless there's something crazy happens, but you'll have a bond. Usually for a first time DUI, it's $500, and you can get a bondsman. You'll give $100 and they'll let you out. Once you get out, that paperwork that the police officers completed gets sent over to the state attorney's office. And there is a department called intake department. They make a decision on whether they're going to file it or not. Once they file it, then it gets over to trial division. And then a skilled attorney would start talking to the state attorney's office right away at the intake unit and say, can we work this case out? And kind of move forward with it, and then kind of track the case as it gets sent to trial division too.
How does a skilled or knowledgeable attorney in this area help a client through this process? So, what do you do?
Sure. So, well, if the individual tells me I did not, I drove and this is my first time DUI, they really don't have any evidence, I usually call the intake department and see if we can work it out early on to see if they will offer sometimes reckless driving early on. In Brevard County, they have a program available for first-time offenders, but you have to be accepted into it. It's called FTOP, which is First-Time Offender Program. Other counties have similar programs for diversion and whatnot for first-time offenders. So you have to, again, a skilled attorney would have to know that area, know the county, know the prosecutors, and what programs are available to advise his client as to what options are available for him or her, to avoid any kind of DUI conviction on their record.
Jay, Cindy had a question about an experience that she had, not DUI.
No, but you know what? It could have ended up that way because I was on that wonderful road that I always get stopped on because it was 45, but now it's 35.
A1A.
Yeah, A1.
Oh my gosh.
And I must have been going a little fast, and he stopped me, but what happened was he brought me into a very dark park. It was very dark, and he's in all his gear in case anything happens to him, but I'm sitting in the car like defenseless. And I purposely opened up my window like a tiny little bit, and I said, "Officer, I have to be honest, I'm scared. You brought me to this deserted area." And he said, "You have nothing to be afraid of. There's cameras around." Well, where were the cameras? That was, maybe, his way of feeling safe, but certainly not my way. And then he said, "Well, you have nothing to be afraid of." And again, I would only keep the window open that much. And I think he must have taken my, defense as, "Oh, were you drinking tonight?" And I said, "No, not at all." And he said, "Well, where were you coming from?" And, already starting to give me the third degree. So he went back to his car and he came back out and he says, "Well, I'm going to give you a warning." And I said, "Okay, thank you." But I mean, it is scary for a woman. So what's your best advice for a woman? And if they bring you off to a dark area?
I mean, I always tell clients, it's you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place kind of situation. So
then it becomes a chase.
It is difficult. Right. And it's difficult because then if you drive too long and without kind of indicating that, hey, I see you, I acknowledge you, I'm just looking for a well-lit area where I feel a little more safer. If you don't do that, then you can be potentially charged with fleeing and eluding, and if they pop their siren on, now you're fleeing and eluding with sirens. So it's an even higher charge. So it sometimes can get worse, but in these kind of situations, especially for, a female that, is in an area where it's a little bit more rough, I tell them, roll your window down and try to kind of get their attention. Like, "I see you, I'm just looking for a spot," or turn your hazard lights on to say that I've acknowledged you. I'm just, trying to find a place, because later on, if they do charge you with some type of fleeing, at least the attorney can make an argument that, hey, look, his hazards are on. He's put his window down. He's putting his hand in the air. He's telling the officer, "I'm just looking for a safer place to pull over." Jay, and not in this dark alley.
Thank you, Jay.
Okay, thank you.
With the time remaining, which isn't much, please give us your contact information if anyone has any questions.
Sure. So, you can call me at the office at any time at 321-639-1320. I'm extension 115. Or you can email me at j@gmtblaw.com. Or you can get a hold of Mitchell Goldman, and I'm sure he'll find me.
I'll
Sounds
find you, Jay.
great.
You're not far away.
Great.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. This was
Thank you for having me,
learned
guys.
a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.